last week we discussed a lot about the philosophical behind the scenes within the commandment of thou shalt not steal, which we said the inverse of that is be honest. And we spoke a lot about honesty, and people really shared a lot of high levels of honesty they were working on. Did this carry over for anyone in the week? Anyone think about it or do anything different because of it? Or
I was just more aware of it to the dot. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I wasting time? And especially at work.
I was just going to say, I mean, we didn't touch on that, but the idea of wasting time at work is definitely a whole area of, is it dishonest? I don't know. It depends on how your work is set up, but is it absolutely honest? Is it absolutely honest? And we're told that's actually, we speak of Jacob, of Yaakov, that when he watched the sheep of Lavan for the second set of 7 years, not at all honest or fair that he had to do it. And yet we're told he did it with absolute honesty, with total devotion and dedication, just like the first 7 years, relatively speaking, honest wages. So yeah, definitely wasting time at work is definitely an example of like, how honest are we? Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Anyone else have any carryover or thoughts in the week on this one? Now, going back to what Robin said, I just want to comment on that comment because I think it's such a practical application, and it's so nice that that was the natural, follow through of our discussion last week. Obviously, this idea of honesty would depend a lot on, am I commissioned, which means that my boss cares less about how much I work, or doesn't really affect him if I do, if I don't, because he's only paying me as per what I do anyway. Where, of course, there's still the idea of being an honest worker, but it's not as intense as this is literally an hourly wage. That's one aspect. And another aspect is there a certain amount of productivity I'm supposed to produce? And they don't really care how long it takes me because I'm responsible for the productivity. In which case, I can take as many breaks as I want, and I'm not cheating anyone because at the end of the day, I'm not clocking in hours, even if officially I'm there for a certain hours, but that's not really the point. The point is my productivity. And as long as my productivity is what they want, I'm honestly producing my work. As there's a situation where it's totally not a concept of productivity, it's literally a concept of hours. And then when you're playing video games, looking at your personal emails and other such situations, very, very much a question of honesty and dishonesty, what you're doing in the workforce. And they do say that it is that this people at work doing other things with the whole advent of, internet and everything. And I don't just mean the last 5 years. I'm saying this probably goes back like 20 years, has created so much waste and so much loss of money in the workplace because, of course, it's something very, very hard to monitor, very insidious. And the people who do it don't feel they're being dishonest. So they're comfortable with themselves as they do it. So that was a very, very practical connection. Then we were discussing, is there any amount of money that, that's so small, that's not considered stealing? The only thing that would be permissible to take would be something so small that the owner wouldn't mind. So the example given would be, let's say you're by a fence and you pick off a sliver of wood to use as a toothpick to clean your teeth, where you're in no way taking anything the owner would care about. It's a sliver of wood from a fence. It's not affecting him at all. It has no monetary value. What's the big deal? And that could be an example of something that's permissible to take. But it's not so simple, because the question is, well, how many people are going to come by and take those slivers of wood for toothpicks? If you remember, I said last week that what sealed the fate of the generation of the flood was this petty thievery. Like the example given our sages is going by a bean merchant and each person taking one bean, a bean. What does a bean cost? You can't buy one bean. It's too small to buy. One bean. You're tasting it. But have 100 people each taking a bean. There goes his merchandise. Or each person walking by and taking a bite out of an apple. Well, there goes all of his wares. One bite, yeah, but you can't sell an apple that has a bite in it, and each person takes one bite out of one apple, and there goes it. So similarly, the sages say, if you're in a situation where everyone wants a sliver of wood for a toothpick, enough slivers of wood will be taken, and it'll affect his fence. Then you're not allowed to take that sliver. Modern day application, maybe we're not walking by fences and take slivers of wood for toothpicks. Plastic bags. They give out stores for free to bag your groceries or purchases. Actually, now in Chicago, in many places, you have to pay for the bag, so that's not relevant. But in places where you still get them for free, can you take an extra bag? There are the bags there. They're there for you to bag your groceries. There's no charge for the bags. Can you take an extra bag? What's it going to cost the store owner? Would he deem it something like, oh, this is how much it cost me? Probably not. Would it affect him if you took an extra bag? Probably not. But what if every customer took one extra bag? Then he would be out a lot of bags, and that would be a cost, and that would affect him. So therefore, we're told, it's like that sliver of wood. You can't take an extra bag even though it's meaningless. You wouldn't view it stealing as all. You could, they don't give you a cost. You're using them to bag your groceries. What if you put less in each bag? Okay, if you put less in each bag, you're putting less in each bag. But if you're deliberately taking an extra bag, which in the end of the day might be the same thing, no. Because again, if every customer took an extra bag, it would be a cost, it would be a loss, it would affect him. And therefore, it would be considered dishonest, be considered actually stealing. To take that extra free bag, you really need it? Buy something and put it in a bag. But you're not allowed to take it because it's stealing. Even if you can't figure out how much does that bag cost. Because if he loses enough, it's a loss. So again, it's just really bringing out this idea of how careful we have to be. You could say, oh, I would never take an extra bag. But again, like we said last week, tasting the grapes in the grocery market. You know, if any of you were raised with that concept where it's a grape. And if every customer takes 5 or so grapes, it's a loss. So even if your action isn't creating a loss, if everyone does it, it's a loss, then you can't do it. Because again, this would create this sense of like, we're allowed to do it. And another person does it, then another person does it, someone sees you do it and they do it, someone sees them do it and they do it. And all of the actions together, you take an extra bag, someone sees it and says, oh, that's a good idea. I also need a bag for something. Oh, that's a good idea. I also need a bag for something. And that will create a, sometimes, now a person might not say this is nice, or they might not think it's wrong to steal from someone who has wronged you monetarily. He's messed you over. He's harmed you deliberately. And now you have an opportunity to right the wrong a little by taking something from him. Absolutely not. He did was wrong. That's between him and God. Well, it's also my money. That's true. That's between you and God. But you're not allowed to do something wrong, even in a case when the person has actually harmed you, or not just harmed you, has harmed you financially. You still can't take something from him to correct that situation.
Make a comment on your last deal about
Absolutely.
the bags.
About the person who wronged you?
No, about the bags. About
Oh, the
taking
bags. Sure, absolutely.
I get double bags when I first go into the store to the Trader Joe's for the rabbi's eggs, because I buy them eggs every week. And so I will always just go to the checkout stand, get double bags, and then fill my bags up with 10 dozen eggs and come back. I sometimes forget to tell the cash guy at the register, those bags aren't paid for yet. And then I get out so the next time I go back, I have to tell them I owe them for bags before and for these bags. And it's very frustrating to me, but I have to do that because it's the only honest way to be.
So in this store, they charge you for bags?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, 100%. Absolutely. You absolutely have to do that. No question. And yeah, usually there's some way to make a note for yourself of, because what you're doing is sort of like after the fact, okay. But if you've seen it's a habit, like a number of times, you take the bags and then you're, oops, didn't pay. Okay, I'll pay next time. You're actually not allowed to do that either. Even though you could say, well, at the end of the day, I'm paying in the bag they charged me 5 cents for. But again, because we're told that part of being honest is paying when the merchant expects to be paid, which is when you take it, not next time. So even though, again, it's a tiny amount of money, I don't know how much they charge for a bag. So you're double bagging. So you're talking maybe they charge 5 cents. I know in Chicago they charge you like 7 cents a bag. So maybe something.
No,
like
it's that. 20. It's 20. It's 10 cents a bag. So
and
2 bags.
The 2 bags. So it's 20 cents. Okay. Yeah. So it's sort of comparable to Chicago. And it's 20 cents. And you're honestly giving it. Actually, Dixie's actually creating a very good example of what I didn't say yet, but was going to say soon, that within this whole idea of paying, you're paying and you're like you have no intention of doing anything but paying. But paying not when the merchant wants you to pay, which is generally at the time of getting the goods, is also considered wrong. So that's just like somehow making this huge mental note to yourself, or having 2 dimes on your on your purse. So when you take the 2 bags, you could just give them the 20 cents to say, okay, I'm already paying for it. Here's the 20 cents. I paid for it. Now I'm going to fill it up with eggs. Or
that's a good idea.
some strategy like that. I know it's these are nuances. Now again, going back to the bags, and let's pretend we were in the good old days when you didn't have to pay for bags. It's not dishonest if you put less items in a bag, because if you prefer carrying them that way, that's fine. Now again, if you're putting less items in a bag because you really want to get a lot of bags, that will be dishonest, even though you're like, within the letter but not spirit of the law. But if you sincerely can only put a few items in a bag because this is much easier for you and you don't want to carry heavy bags, you've had experiences where bags rip, no problem. But if you're doing it to get more bags, it's a problem. So yeah, there's a lot of little subtle issues there, but that's a great example Dixie just gave. Perfect example.
Well, thank you, because I had no idea. I thought as long as I made up the money, I was fine. But that's and I now I remember that teaching. I remember you're right. Things are to be paid for right when you get them.
Right.
You're not to go. It's not to go to bed owing people something?
Absolutely. There is that concept of not going to bed that you owed someone. Really, that's more like an employee, that you owe them wages and you didn't pay. But in terms of honesty, the level of honesty demanded, when we get something from a merchant, when we're buying something, we're supposed to pay on the spot. Unless you have an arrangement with the merchant and the merchant doesn't mind, says, oh, Dixie, you're such a good customer, you could pay me once a week. Then it's totally honest to all week take and once a week pay, because that's the arrangement you made. But if the normative arrangement is you pay when you take, then you have to pay when you take.
Interesting.
I have a follow-up question. If you ask though, okay, so like if you said in that example, can I please have one more bag? Not in Dixie's example, but the example where you want an extra bag.
Where the bags are free.
The bags are free. And you say, can I please have an extra bag?
So that's a great question. And the answer to that, which also was a law we're going to say, but we can say it right now, is it depends on if the clerk has that authority. Meaning sometimes you're in stores, especially like these big, I don't know, Walmart, or it doesn't even have to be Walmart, but you know what I'm saying? The people that are working the register couldn't care less. It's not their money. It's not coming out of their pocket.
Right. Exactly.
So,
yeah.
them telling you, yeah, lady, take 5. You're not being dishonest. You're not sneaking. You're saying it and you're getting permission. The question is, does this clerk have the authority to give permission? So it's very interesting because Robin, who works in a high class department store, Nordstrom's, so she shared with us last week that the policy of the store is just give the customer whatever they want. Right? She said, if they tell you I'm buying this today and because I have a party tonight and I'm returning it tomorrow, you say, have a lovely time at the party. So therefore, in such a situation, she's the clerk. I mean, following that, a perspective that her bosses want her to have. If someone says, can I have 3 extra bags? She's supposed to say, sure, here, take them, enjoy. So when she does that, you're fine, because that's her authority, because that's what her bosses, her administration wants. But in a store where it's not clear if that's what the bosses would want, getting permission from the clerk, if he's just a clerk and he has no financial investment in the company, would not necessarily be considered good enough. And it's sort of a nuanced question where, like, going back to the example I gave that, we discussed with Robin last week, because I do see people doing this all the time. And it always bothers me. Not that I should be bothered with what other people do, but, like they'll buy something to use it and return it. I need a one-time use, so I'm buying it, using it, and returning it.
That's clearly wrong, right? Like you can't, I would never think to do that, but you can't do that, right? I
assume it's clearly wrong, but I know sometimes I've discussed with people and they say no. The the store has a policy that they let you do that because they're so confident their thing is good that you're going to keep it.
Oh,
So my question, I'm saying I would never do it either, but I have had discussion with numerous people that someone feel comfortable to do this. And my question would be exactly what I just said to you. Is the person who's telling you it's like, we asked and whoever was in the store said it was okay. So then you have to ask, is this the policy of the store? Or is this person, the clerk, telling you this? And does he have jurisdiction here? Does he have authority to tell you? Like, you really have to question this. I actually remember a very specific case. Someone told me about something where their teacher wanted to buy a sound system, whatever, an expensive sound system for some activity. And he spoke to whatever company he was buying it from. And he said, I'm being honest with you. I'm buying it because I have a certain event and I need it. And they said, take it. You're going to like it. You're going to keep it. And actually, that's what happened. He bought it and he liked it and he kept it. So maybe there's some wisdom in that philosophy. But really, that's something you have to ask the person. Meaning, if you ask for the extra bag, getting back to Danielle's simple example, if you ask for the extra bag, you would really have to phrase it, not can I have an extra bag, but what's the policy of the store here? Am I allowed to have I'd like an extra bag. Does the store allow it? Like, you have to make sure it's the store's
yes, I
perspective
gotcha.
and not this clerk's.
Because I'm thinking bags are free here in Indiana. So I don't know that I've asked for a free bag. But those of you that are familiar with like Aldi's setup, everything's put in your cart. And then you go to this like section where people bag their groceries. But Aldi doesn't give away free bags. That's an important piece. So you have to buy your bags or bring your own bags. I always bring my own bags, but every once in a while I'll stop on the way doing something and not have my bag. There's always boxes from the store that are there where you can put stuff in. There's also many times extra bags there. So like maybe someone has purchased them and they didn't need as many and they just left them on that table. And what I will do is ask the clerk, like, is these someone's bags? Are these leftover extra bags? And they're like, yeah, somebody left them there a long time ago. You can use them. I've never really thought much about it because I'm like, oh, okay, well, if I ask and they say it's okay, then it should be okay. But now you have me second guessing that.
What I would say is ask, is this the store's policy?
Right, exactly.
What's
Yeah.
all these policy regarding these extra bags? Another
Right.
opinion. I'm not asking you,
Right.
working for minimum wage clerk,
Right,
and
right,
it's not
right.
relevant to you if I put an extra, I don't know, 5 cents down for the bag. But I'm
Right.
asking, is there a policy? Does Aldi have a policy? I guess a store like Aldi probably does have a policy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or what's, what does your manager say? Or I know this sounds weird, but could you ask your manager, not for this time, but could you ask your manager, and just so I would even know for the future, or even ask,
Yes.
like because you're assuming the manager would have jurisdiction, and by him, the
Right.
profitability of the store would make a difference.
Yeah.
That would be something relevant to him. So like, what's the policy? If I see extra bags there, am I allowed to use them? Yes, because someone did pay for them, or no, because you didn't pay for them.
Right, right. I'm so glad we talked about that because I do it all the time. And I definitely want to make sure that, thank you.
Right. I know. And these little things, like, so often these things happen to us, and it's like, am I jeopardizing my honesty for 20 cents? Of course not.
Right, exactly.
Of course
Yeah,
not.
right.
Nobody's jeopardizing. I mean, if you care about your honesty enough to think about it, you're not going to be jeopardizing for 20 cents. But these little details we don't even think of. And that's like the sensitization of like, like I asked the clerk, what more do you want from me? Does the clerk have authority? Oh, he's not just the clerk. He's the owner. Great. He's the son of the owner. That's probably good too. He's the manager. That probably would be fine. But anything less than that, it's really always good to say, what's the store's policy? Both of all the issues, what Dixie raised, what Danielle raised, these are great. And these are all related to laws that we didn't say it, but we just discussed now. And that's perfect. So continuing the laws in the order where they're laid out, taking something as a joke to annoy someone, a practical joke, totally planning on returning and totally returning it. That is considered stealing. You're not allowed to take something from someone as a joke. Again, the joke doesn't mean if the joke is to aggravate the person. If it's, again, practical joke. Now, if you did take it and return it, you would not be liable for capital punishment, but it's still totally forbidden. Stealing something with the intention of paying it back. I mean, there are stories, honest people, so to speak, but in very hard situations that like steal food. for survival, for the children's survival, and they totally have it like all written down what they're going to pay back when they get money. So it sounds so honest, and obviously it is honest for a thief to do that. It's very honest, but it's not allowed. Touch our heart. And it does touch our heart, but it's not allowed. Even if you 100% know you don't have the money, and of course I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying the bare, dry facts. You don't have the money, you cannot take with a sense of, I'm writing it down, I know I owe it to this person, I just don't have the money for it now. You just can't take it, even though you really, really, really need it. And again, like taking something without permission, to use it, it's a use item. So to use it with the intention of returning it, and you do return it, that is, again, totally considered stealing. Not that you'd have capital punishment because you did return it, but that is totally considered stealing. Stealing from relatives. Taking something from a relative without permission is considered stealing. And a person could say, but I know my aunt would be very happy for me to have this. Beautiful. But if you didn't ask her, you can't walk into her house and walk off with it unless you have such an arrangement with her. If you have an arrangement with your sister, with your mother, with your aunt, with your cousin, if I'm short, I know your back door is always unlocked. You know, we live across the road. I can go into your kitchen and take, you know, whatever sugar, eggs, oil, whatever items I need. And you could do the same for me. If you have that arrangement, beautiful. If you don't have that arrangement and you can't get through to her, you cannot take something from hers that you know she would be 100% happy for you to take. It does make a difference that you know she'd be happy to take, that you've taken it countless times with permission. Unless there is an explicit arrangement, like if you remember I told you to do with my students with pens, that we're all verbally saying anyone can take or use or walk off with any of our pens or writing implements. If you don't have that type of agreement with a person, even though it's a relative, even though they'd be totally happy, even though if they were standing there, you'd have no problem walking in and taking it, it doesn't make a difference. It's literally considered stealing. Robin Hood is completely forbidden. Completely forbidden. The concept of Robin Hood, of course, is the example of stealing from the rich to give to the poor. Totally forbidden. We never can do a good deed via a transgression. So yes, it's a very good deed to give to the poor. And you're never allowed to steal to give to the poor. So that whole concept, even if a person says, but this person's abusive and he's taking their money and which is probably all true, you know, just extorting them and squeezing them, and I'm just giving back what's rightfully theirs. It's all totally true, but it's completely forbidden. Turn to God and beg for some mercy here for the situation, but you cannot steal from a person, like, again, classic example, you cannot steal from a wealthy person to give to a poor person, even the poor person desperately needs it and the wealthy person very inappropriately took it. It's still, there's no concept, which again, you can say, well, I'm not in that situation, I would never steal from someone to give, but it just shows, again, the whole fallacy of the mindset, like that whole Robin Hood mindset and that whole culture is completely, completely wrong.
What happens if somebody is hurt or injured and you need to take something and the person is not around to ask it? In other words, say you needed to borrow their car to get them to the hospital and you can't get a hold of anybody. So what, in that situation, what would be the halakha?
So if it's a question, that's what we call pikuach nefesh. If it's a life and death emergency, saving the life would come first, and you would have the obligation as soon as you can to contact that person and do whatever remuneration was necessary. That's 100% if it's a life and death. But if it's not life and death, but you're sort of panicking because someone has to get into the hospital, but there really is time, you know, then you would need to reach somebody that has a vehicle and that can take you with or can give you their vehicle. So again, if it really is life and death, that comes first. But if it's not a life and death situation, even though the person's in pain and the person needs to get to a hospital, you have to figure out a way to contact someone that has a car. And that would be true in general for all of those types of, as we say, pikuach nefesh situations, a life and death situation, someone's drowning, and you see some item that you could extend to save them and it's not yours and it probably will get ruined, it's okay. You're saving someone's life, save the person's life, and then deal with the owner. Don't say, oh, I can't touch it, because it's not mine and I'm not allowed to steal, and that would be stealing to take it. Nor will it be stealing to take it. To save a person's life, you're allowed to do that. But then afterwards, you can't say, since you can't do it in the reverse. Since I saved someone's life with this item, whatever, the owner had a great merit that I saved the life, whoever it is. No, I really do have to make restitution. If I, for use of their item, I have to reach out to them and say, leave a note, I use this to save this person's life. If you want to, if I need to pay you for any use of it, please let me know. Here's my number. And that would be true in any of those types of situations. Now, what about a situation where you see that someone is not carefully watching his money? So you want to teach him a lesson. There's actually a famous story about this. Someone to teach the person a lesson because they were being so careless with their wealth, they stole like of a good friend just to give it back that day, and then they didn't give it back that day, and they didn't give it back the next day, and they didn't give it back the next day, and whatever. A story with not a very happy ending, but totally forbidden. He's your friend and you just want to teach them a lesson because they're being so careless. Not allowed to do it. You could talk to them, you could show them how easy it would have been for you to take it, but you cannot take it even with totally intending to return it and totally just to get the message across, and maybe they'd have 5 minutes of panic for them to learn their lesson. You're not allowed to do that. Now, a different situation though is, what if the person is not mentally capable of guarding their property? Like, let's say you have an elderly relative with dementia, something along those lines, where they no longer have the ability to watch their resources. Then you can, again, depending on the setup in society with a court order, with, however it works. But from a Torah, as Dixie's saying, from a halachic perspective, from a Jewish legal perspective, if the person is being careless, you cannot steal to teach them a lesson. If the person does not have the mental capacity to take care of their property, you can take over it for them. Again, depending on you, whoever you is, whoever will be the closest appropriate relative, whoever will be the closest in that situation, does have the right to take over running this person's whatever to protect it for them, not because they're being careless, but because they, at least at the moment, don't have the mental facility, the mental abilities to run their own possessions, to take care of their own things. And that is permissible. There were a lot of laws here, but we actually happened to touch on them between Dixie and Danielle's question in terms of taking things and paying for it later, forbidden, asking a clerk only if he has authority, taking things that seemingly are such minuscule value. If everybody would do it, it would give them a harm. Still not allowed. It's interesting because even if you're doing something, let's say the owner's not around, this is a very honest place, and he leaves like a box. He says, if you buy anything, no problem. Just put the cash in the box. I'm out for lunch. I trust you. Can you put a check in the box? Maybe not. Maybe that would be considered stealing. What do you mean? It's an honest check. Yeah, but does he accept checks? If he doesn't accept checks, leaving him a check is dishonest, even though he's leaving a box and saying, put the money in it. Even if something is honest, but if you do it in a secretive fashion, already it's wrong, because it's going to train you to be dishonest. If the owner's not there and he has an arrangement, if I'm not there, go to the store next door and you can buy it through him. And that's totally honest. That's the arrangement. But if you do it like secretively, if you do it like as if you're doing something wrong, that's already a problem because it trains you to do things wrong. When I read this, I was reminded of a podcast that I heard very recently where a man was saying that he was doing something wrong. Now, I don't know anything about the stock market I only know it's forbidden from his story, but to trade with inside information. So in America, as I found out, you're making honest trades, but you have inside information that's guiding your trade. That's against the law. So he was doing this. He was influenced by a bad friend and he was doing this. So he's talking to his friend about this, whatever he was saying, nothing, overt on the phone. And then he hung up and he said to his wife, okay, he's going to this guy's house. And his wife was like, you were just talking to him. He said, no. Some things are better not to be said over the phone. And his wife said, if you can't say it over the phone, don't do it. You shouldn't be doing something you're not comfortable to say over the phone. And that just made such an impression on him, power of a good wife, and he stopped. A few years later, the government found out about it and whatever, he got caught, and that's the whole story. But that concept like hit him. Like, what am I doing? Because you're telling yourself, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm trading. I'm paying for whatever they are, the stocks. I'm paying honestly, because I know some inside information. It doesn't always help me. Half the time trading with inside information, I lost my money. Half the time I gained. It's no big deal. If you're not willing to convey this information on the phone, that already shows you there's a problem. If you're doing something in a sneaky way, in a way as if what you were doing is dishonest, that already shows you, as we would call it, it's not so kosher. It's not so honest. And if your brain, because obviously our brain tells us, but it's okay because it's an honest trade. I just happen to know information. I'm paying the store later. I asked the clerk, whatever our brain tells us. If I can't do this in a open fashion, that's already telling me I'm training myself to do something wrong. Even if what you're doing actually is 100% correct. That's the law. Even if it's 100% correct, you're 100% allowed to do it. You let's go back to Danielle's example. You speak to the store manager and the store manager says, anytime you see an extra bag, that means someone paid for it, feel free to take it. 100% allowed to feel free to take it. If every time you take the bag, you look around to make sure no one's looking and you take the bag because you're embarrassed to be snoring these bags, that's already telling you, not a good idea. Why? It's legal, 100% legal. The manager says it's 100% legal. You're 100% kosher, legal, halacha, Jewish law, fine. But once you're already doing something as if it's in a covert fashion, it's already not good because it's changing us. It's affecting us. It's making us people that are sneaking when we're doing things, even though here you're sneaking and doing something you're allowed to do. And that already it's not healthy. It's not healthy for our honesty.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure, absolutely.
Sorry. So what happens if you might have already answered it, but what happens if you see people that don't take care of stuff? They just trashy. And so if you go and pick up some of that trash without telling them, thinking you're doing a good deed, what is that situation?
It was put in their trash?
No. Like there's a lot of places here in the country, people just junk everywhere, and it's in the way. Sometimes it's in the way of even getting someplace because they leave it out on the roadsides or whatever.
Like what?
And,
give me an example.
Well, they'll leave old couches, old
so someone takes a couch.
Someone
takes a couch and puts it in the street. When they're taking that couch and putting it in the street, what they're saying is this is garbage.
Okay.
So if they're saying it is garbage, you would be allowed to take it. Now it's interesting because there are some places where there are laws that you're not allowed to take garbage. I don't think though that's meant what you're saying. And that's why I asked you, because they actually have people that this is how they make their living. They go through dumpsters, because especially dumpsters outside like stores. So stores, let's say like clothing stores, shoe stores, sometimes just to get rid of the old merchandise, they put it in the dumpster. Perfectly good new shoes. So, and there's people, I forget what they call them, dumpster divers, dumpster diggers, something like that they know this. So they go to these places to take out the merchandise. That is actually considered stealing by the law, because the stores don't want you to do that, because obviously anyone could go through their dumpster and get shoes for free and then they would make less sales. So the stores are dumping it, but not wanting you to take it from the dumpster. Why don't they do something useful with it, like give it away to poor people? I don't know. But and then literally there are laws around this concept of forbidding people to look through dumpsters for things. So that would be the only issue I would see. If you're like I would say in Chicago, people take old furniture and they put it in their alley. They want the trash men to take it away. So if you're driving in an alley in Chicago and you see a couch, you know it was put out because they want someone to take it. So you're taking it as fine. That's the understood culture of the city of Chicago. So if it's the same where you live, and the understood culture is if you see a couch in the road, it means someone's saying, I don't want this anymore. And you can take it, can fix it, can use it, can give it to someone who would have use of it. That's wonderful. That's
Yeah, that's
recycling.
what
Great.
I'm trying to get at. I understand all that. And I do know here in Colorado, if they dump it alongside the road, it's up for grabs. It doesn't matter. In fact, you hope somebody takes it, because otherwise the county comes and charges,
Exactly.
But what I'm trying, it's a little deeper than that. Okay, say you've got an older couple and they can't really take care of their place. So if you go in and you take stuff away to help them take care of their place, and you take it to like a thrift place, and then hopefully that it would sell and you'd be able to give them the money.
Only with their permission. Only with their permission.
Okay.
You cannot do it without their permission, because that would be akin to these examples I'm giving of like someone who says, I'm stealing to help the person. I'm stealing to teach the person a lesson. I'm stealing to this. No. If I'm taking this old chair because, oh my gosh, my mother has this old mattress and I just have to take it away from her because she'll never get rid of it. And she's sleeping on this lumpy mattress, and the only way I'll be able to get a new one is if I take away the old one. No, it's forbidden. I actually know an interesting story of someone who her mother had this. That's probably why I thought of that example. Her mother had this old mattress, and she could never get her mother to give away, and her mother, poor lady, would never give up anything. And she was like, oh, when my mother's away, I'm going to go to the house. I'm going to take the mattress, dump it out, and buy her a beautiful new mattress. And that's what she did, feeling very virtuous. And the mother came home and had like a whole attack because she had stored all of her money, all of her cash. She didn't trust banks. It was all in that mattress.
Oh.
Yes, true story. I don't know if they found the mattress or not, but this is a true story. So
I have a story just like that for you. My daughter-in-law, her mother had never gotten rid of magazines. And she had a room, I don't know how much, couple rooms full of old magazines. Well, of course, she would never let them touch them. And they begged her, let them get rid of them. After she passed away, when they started going through those magazines, because somehow they found out that she had money in there, $300,000
between the pages of the magazines.
Yeah,
it's good they didn't one day do a nice kindness and throw them all out to clear out the room for her.
Exactly.
Right. So going back to your situation, if you see someone with an old lumpy couch that they would never sit on anyway, and it's cluttering up their room, no, you cannot take it without permission, even to sell it at a thrift shop and give them the money. That would actually literally be considered stealing, 100%. Of course, if you gave them the money, you would not be a thief worthy of capital punishment, but the act itself will be considered a dishonest act, an act of thievery. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. 100%. 100%.
I have to say, I had a hard time because we grew up, if it's mine, if you want to use it, it's fine. I don't care. That's just the way we were. It's the way we were raised. As long, like if I wanted to borrow my pen, I didn't care if somebody grabbed it and took it. It just didn't, that wasn't the way we were raised. We shared. We were taught to share everything. Well, I was at the class at synagogue one day, and I reached over. I didn't think about it. I reached over and grabbed my friend's pen. Oh my gosh, she came unglued. And it was like, whoa, that's just a pen. But for her, it was personal. And I apologized, and I never did it again. But it taught me a lesson that, some things are very personal to others that are just nothing to us.
And even if it was nothing to her, let's take it a step further. If it was nothing to her, and she's there and you're taking it, in essence, she's right there, you're asking her permission. But if she's not there because she stepped away to the washroom or to get a drink of water or a cup of coffee, and there's her pen that you have many times taken, you can't take it. Because unless you have agreement That's why these things are really important. Unless you have articulated, we share pens. Feel free. You can ask her, can I feel free to take your pen whenever I want? She has to say yes. And I'm offering you my pens whenever you want. I'm offering you my tissues if I'm around or not. Feel free to take them. If there's not that articulation, the fact that you were raised this way, maybe she was raised that way also, it doesn't make a difference. You're still not allowed to do it. So Natanya is chatting the same question that we said before. Yes, you obviously we make mistakes, but obviously we want to watch for our areas of mistakes. So if you know that you would accidentally take bags without paying for them, you have to try as much as you can to figure out a system that you won't forget. All right, I don't know what happened. People got knocked off or jumped off. I guess that's our signal. We will end at this point. To be continued.
Thank you.
Yeah, we should all just listen.
Thank
We're
you so much.
sincerely trying, and God will help us, because our honesty is worth more than this. Our honesty is worth more than that. We mean sincerely well, and then sometimes we don't realize. Oh, so Tanya got back on. Tanya, I'm going to say the answer again. I said it, but I guess you got knocked off. So if you honestly forgot, what can you do? I would say maybe to teach yourself a lesson. If you honestly forgot, make an extra trip to the store just to pay them. Like, you honestly forgot, you got home, you're like, oh my gosh, 5 bags, 50 cents, next time. No. Just because my honesty is worth it, I'm going to go and now give them that 50 cents. Like, to teach myself a lesson that I shouldn't do it again, because
Yeah, I think
I don't want to do that.
I think that the thing with me is that I have this mental thing that, okay, I'm gonna pay for it next time anyway. So it's becoming a habit every time. I forgot. So yeah, now I know that, okay, it's just supposed to be
Something like
to
that.
teach me a lesson. Yeah, yeah.
You need some mental, put it over your credit card, a little sticky that says pay for the bags, put it over your checkbook, a little sticky that says pay for the bags. Just do something to train yourself. Again, it's not that the store per se cares or doesn't care. That's not relevant. You care because you don't want to do anything even in the slightest bit wrong. That's why you care, and that's why you want to make yourself some really concrete reminder that you won't mess up. But being human, sometimes we're human and sometimes we do mess up. But there's many stories of people that were given too much change and walk back miles. I'm talking about, in earlier times where it was walking and it was far, but walk back miles to return the extra small amount of change. Not that it would make a difference to the store owner. And you could say it's not dishonest. He gave me the money. But for their own sake, for their own honesty, they made that effort.
I have to say one thing. When I have done that, when I've realized my mistake or whatever, or told them, no, I took extra bags last time, I needed to pay this time, I forgot, they're shocked. Why would you do that? And it's like, well, because I owe it. That's why I do it. It's
always good then to say, because I'm a Noahide, because I believe in God. I can remember so many times this has happened to me. I had once a credit card company, my credit card by mistake credited me with an extra $100. I don't know what, for whatever, it was a mistake. I just saw it on my bill, like they gave me $100. And I called the credit card company and they never heard of that. Like, what? And I tried to say, it's a very simple thing. You gave me an extra $100. I'm calling, so you should take it off. They literally transferred me to 5 departments to figure out how to do this. And each one, it was like, I hope I said it each time, because obviously I don't remember because it was a while ago, but I hope I definitely knew what to say. I'm a God-fearing Jew, and I've had other situations. I've actually had quite a number of situations like this. And I always try to remember. I don't always remember, but I hope I should always try to remember. Say, I'm a God-fearing person. I'm a God-fearing Jew. I'm a God-fearing Noahide. And that's why I'm doing this, because that's a beautiful way to sanctify God's name.